Alright, what's happening, y'all? Y'all know I had to come out with my 5th and final mock draft. This one is the most realistic one. This is the one where I'm more so projecting what I feel like will happen and not necessarily what I want to happen. And this is after the Ereck Flowers trade. I literally had to make some changes in my mock draft because I originally had us doing certain things that Ereck Flowers just killed. And I didn't want to look stupid out here, so I had to make some changes. And I'm pretty sure after the Burgundy and Gold traded for Ereck Flowers, they've also made some changes to their draft strategy as well. But you already know, man, we're going to do a full 7 rounds, comp and analysis for each pick, positives and negatives, pros and cons. And I'm also going to include some undrafted free agents this time because this is the realistic one. So I want to also throw in a few guys that I feel like they may take a look at after the draft. Some guys that may end up going undrafted. But, man, y'all already know how these mock drafts go, man. Let's go ahead and get to it, man. Not going to wait too much time. Alright, so again, disclaimer, this is not what I want to do. This is what I think is likely to happen. This is me challenging myself to see how many I can get right. If you want to know exactly which players I want us to draft and want to know which guys I love the most in the draft, check out my dream case scenario mock draft, the previous one to this one. This one is based on reports and which prospects they have met with the most and have shown the most interest in. I'm not just going to pick guys out of the blue for no reason. There either has to be a report or they've met with these guys virtually, whether it be Rivera, Martin Mayhew, one of the front office guys, or a specific coach like a linebackers coach, an offensive line coach, things like that. And again, this is what I think will happen, not what I want to happen. I have a little influence in here, but not so much. I start to have more influence as we get to the later rounds because, you know, that's just up in the air. But early on, I think this is very realistic what's going to happen. And honestly, I feel like we are quite likely to trade up for quarterback, especially after this Ereck Flowers move and all of the reports that are going on. And it's very likely to Trey Lance and Fields fall to a spot that Rivera and company are comfortable trading up for them. But I'm not going to do that here because I don't think that's the most likely option. I'm going with the most likely option. Alright, so first up in the first round, pick 19, and honestly I feel like if he falls to a certain point, I feel like they may trade up for him, especially if he falls to like 14 or 15 and the Burgundy and Gold don't want to risk it. I have us taking linebacker Micah Parsons. I actually feel like this is very likely. There's been reports that we have strong interest in him. And of course Ron Rivera wants his Luke Kuechly, because originally I was going to give us JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, but I just can't really see him playing much Mike linebacker. Like, I like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah a lot, but he's more of like a will linebacker, you know, occasionally in the slot, like an overhang and sub packages, things like that, like an extra safety in a way. And I'm not necessarily worried about his weight as far as what he needs to do to be a will linebacker, but with us being in nickel most of the time anyway, so we usually only have 2 linebackers out there, we need to have a guy that can be very effective in the run game. And Micah Parsons is just the most complete linebacker in this draft. And you could argue he's one of the best linebacker prospects, just pure talent-wise and potential, since Miles Jack, Jalen Smith, and Reuben Foster. Like, he's up there with those type of guys. And, of course, again, Ron Rivera wants his Luke Kuechly. And that takes me to my ceiling comp. He's literally Luke Kuechly if he just avoids the off-the-field issues. Only thing Luke Kuechly is higher in with his RAS score is bench and shuttle, which means he's slightly stronger and maybe very slightly more agile. But Micah is taller, slightly more explosive, and noticeably faster. He can play well in coverage. He hasn't done it a lot, hasn't been asked to do a lot of man, but with this athletic upside, I can definitely see him being good at it. And he's shown flashes, he just hasn't done it consistently. Micah Parsons can step in, and along with Cole Holcomb and maybe even potentially Landon Collins, could actually form a very formidable linebacker group. I think Cole Holcomb is just going to keep getting better and better. I feel like his last season went a little underrated. He still has things he needs to work on, but I feel like he's starting to emerge as a pretty good linebacker. And I think he's already surpassed his 5th round draft pick. And then potentially Landon Collins at linebacker, especially like in sub packages like a Will, and then Micah Parsons is that Luke Kuechly leader of the defense type of guy, is ridiculous. Because you got to think about it. Micah Parsons is, to most people, including me, the best defensive player in this draft. And again, you can argue he's the best linebacker we've seen coming out of a draft since Jalen Smith before the injury, Miles Jack, Reuben Foster before the injury, and the drama. And you add that to this already top 3 defense statistically, with that defensive line, with Cole Holcomb's athleticism and him getting better and better as we're going. With that secondary, we finally have a lockdown corner that's just gonna literally mirror and shadow every opponent's number 1 receiver. Like, this defense literally has the potential to be the best defense in the NFL. You get Micah Parsons. Because there's going to be debates on whether Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Micah Parsons, or William Jackson are the best players on our defense. You may even be able to throw in Cameron Curl right there, or Jonathan Payne, whoever you like the most. I feel like Micah Parsons is up there with like a Chase Young type of talent. I feel like he's Chase Young but linebacker instead of defensive end. Like, he's that type of doesn't come every draft type of talent. You get him, it's over with defensively. Best defense in the league as long as he avoids off the field issues. He's just a playmaker. He's just one of those guys that's always in the mix. Of course, he has some awareness things he needs to work on. Again, he has to work on his coverage skills. He has to learn how to man cover and things like that. But the potential is ridiculous. And he also has a very high floor, because even if he comes in day 1 and doesn't improve from what we saw before he opted out last season, he's still better than anybody we have on our roster, and arguably the best linebacker we've had since London Fletcher. He's definitely more naturally talented than a London Fletcher. Not saying automatically he's going to be better than a London Fletcher, but as far as just natural talent, he's the most naturally talented linebacker we've had since LeVar Arrington, who's also a Penn State alum. Moving on, in the second round, 51st overall, I have us taking cornerback Ifeatu Melifonwu. And they've met with him virtually, and I feel like this is probably our best value in the second round, because other guys that may be interested in are Jabril Cox, who we already took linebacker in the first, Brevin Jordan, but I have us taking another tight end later, and you already know who that is if you've seen my other mock drafts. Rondale Moore, but receiver isn't that big of a need. I feel like we need another shutdown corner, hopefully move Kendall Fuller to the slot. So process of elimination literally leaves Ifeatu Melifonwu as like our best value in the second round, especially at that point. I was thinking about taking Georgia corner Eric Stokes, but they haven't met with him virtually. They may not feel like he's the right build. And I love Ifeatu Melifonwu's potential, man. He's arguably the most athletic corner in this draft. I mean, his ceiling, his potential is ridiculous. Only thing he's kind of missing is a little bit of agility. But like, as far as length, size, explosion, speed, strength, he's that dude in this draft. Just has some instinct things to work on, some technique things to work on, some IQ and awareness things. And to me, you literally have a faster Jimmy Smith. And Jimmy Smith never necessarily earned any Pro Bowls, but just imagine Jimmy Smith is your second best corner. You have Jimmy Smith locking up the other team's number 2 wide receivers. That's shutdown, especially again if you have a faster version of Jimmy Smith. And again, I would prefer to put Kendall Fuller back into the slot. That's his best position. That's where he's had his best years in his career by far, easily. The reason he didn't look that good for the Chiefs while he was there, and why he hasn't looked like a certified Pro Bowler since being here, is because he's not in the slot. He's been playing outside corner, and his skill set is definitely far better suited in the slot. And we also don't have just a bona fide slot corner. I like Jimmy Moreland. I still like his potential, but he just has to get better for us to like certify, throw him out there as a dependable slot guy every time we need one. So Kendall Fuller back in the slot, William Jackson at number 1, and a faster Jimmy Smith at number 2 is arguably the best secondary in the NFL. Easily top 5. And then it's behind that defensive line and behind that linebacker core. Like, come on, bro. Like, that's ridiculous. Those 2 picks right there. Now, I'm not promising that Ifeatu Melifonwu would just come in day 1 and it's Jimmy Smith, but he definitely has the potential. That's why I'm calling it a ceiling comp. But the potential is definitely there, and I don't feel like he's just this super raw type of prospect like his brother was, the Obi Melifonwu. Ifeatu Melifonwu comes with a higher floor than that, but a similar ceiling, probably even a higher ceiling. Now, next up, we have 2 third-round picks, 74th overall and 82nd overall. With the 74th overall one, I have us taking Davis Mills, quarterback from Stanford. And again, I think it's actually quite likely that we trade up for quarterback, which is my favorite option. Trading up for Trey Lance or Justin Fields is literally a home run hitting draft for me. But if we don't, I could definitely see them taking an ex-5-star quarterback in Davis Mills, very raw, and having him as a developmental project. Because, I mean, if you don't trade up for quarterback now, you're not going to get one of those top guys anytime soon. You're not getting them next year, because I believe we're going to win more games this next year than we did last year, whether we win the division or not. So I'm assuming we're going to have a later pick. So that means we will have to trade up further. And then also the QB crop next year, I'm expecting it to not be anywhere near as good as this one. Whereas I feel like there are 5 really good guys in this draft. Even Mac Jones, who I don't want because I want a guy with a higher ceiling. Even as of today, I feel like Mac Jones will probably be QB1 in next year's draft. I mean, you never know. Maybe there's a Burrow-like guy that comes out of nowhere, but I'm not very high on Sam Howell or any of those other guys so far. And I feel like best case scenario, maybe there's 2 or 3 of them that I feel like are really good potential franchise quarterbacks. Even then, that's not 5. So you will have to trade up further in the draft, and we will also more than likely have a later pick in the first round. So we will have to give up even more value to get a franchise quarterback next year than this year. So it's like, if you don't do it this year, we're more than likely just going to take a guy later in the draft. And it's also been reported heavily that we're interested in Davis Mills, maybe even to the level of taking him as a second round pick. Now, also, I've heard that the Patriots are interested in him and are the highest on him and may even potentially take him in the first. But if they don't and he ends up sliding to the third, I can definitely see us taking him. I feel like his ceiling comp is of Ryan Tannehill. Again, very talented, pretty mobile, not a Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, but definitely more than like a Mac Jones. Even though Mac Jones is not a statue, Mac Jones is definitely not a statue, but he's just not those other guys. And I feel like Davis Mills also isn't those other guys, but he is more mobile than a Mac Jones. Mac Jones right now has a way better pocket presence than Davis Mills though. But Davis Mills does have the potential to be a more mobile guy overall. But that's why I compare him to Ryan Tannehill. Mobile, not a very strong arm, but you can see why he was like a 5-star quarterback at one time. I mean, there's untapped potential there. There's unlocked talent there that you could probably nurture. Again, I'm team trade up for quarterback. I don't really love any of those guys outside of those top 5 guys. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Davis Mills. I feel like he's flashed more, and he's also more of a mystery. I feel like he may have a higher ceiling, and if you're going to take a developmental guy, I prefer to take the guy with the higher ceiling. Again, I don't love any of these guys outside of the top 5 quarterback guys, so I have us taking Davis Mills because I think it's realistic. But honestly, me personally, I feel like I would prefer to just take the best offensive tackle or safety or receiver that's available with that pick. But I do feel like if he slides to that third round, he would be that pick. There's been a lot of reports of how interested we are in Davis Mills if we don't trade up for quarterback. Now, that's assuming that he's at least going to beat out Kyle Allen to be the 3rd quarterback on the depth chart as a developmental guy. And then Steven Montez, they want to take a good look at him, at least in the preseason. So they want to at least give him that chance because he didn't have that chance last year with preseason being canceled. But I feel like Steven Montez may just end up being on the practice squad anyway. And Davis Mills has more potential to be a true pocket passing quarterback than like a Steven Montez, who they reportedly want to introduce into like a Taysom Hill like role. And then with the next 3rd round pick, I have us taking free safety Richie Grant. He's not Trevon Merrick. He's not Javon Holland. He may not even be Andre Cisco, but I like his versatility. I like his range. Fairly raw, but the range is there, and that's exactly what we're missing. This secondary is mostly missing a rangy free safety, a center fielder that can just be at the top by himself, holding it down, single high type of thing. Running single high and having everybody else man up with this defensive line and this linebacker group with Micah Parsons is a deadly combo. You just can't throw against that. You can't run against it. What do you do? Cameron Curl lurking around in the back. It just wouldn't be fair. And my ceiling comp for him is John Johnson. Used to be on the Rams, now on the Browns. I mean, I literally feel like that's his exact play style. That's his exact ceiling. Again, not guaranteeing that he will literally be John Johnson. But if we're able to develop him, I feel like John Johnson is a very realistic comp for him. He has that type of talent and potential to him. Again, I don't feel like he's a Trevon Merrick or Javon Holland as far as potential goes and floor, but there's a lot of potential there. Then in the next round, 4th round, 124th overall, y'all already know, man, I have us taking my boy Tommy Tremble. And the reason I keep having us taking him in mock drafts, first of all, I really love his game. As you can see, my ceiling comp for him is George Kittle. Very similar situation in college. terrible quarterback play, bad offensive coordinator that doesn't know how to use them, but when used shows big flashes, but teams will probably pass on them for a few rounds because there's no proof that he can do it consistently and be a dependable guy. But he has the traits, there's flashes of dual threat ability. A good blocker as an inline tight end can definitely get better with further technique, but the strength is definitely there. Shows good hands, shows untapped athleticism and potential, but again, it's in flashes, it's in spurts, just like George Kittle, and not necessarily to their faults, but to their team's fault. Bad quarterback play, inconsistent quarterback play, and just bad usage from the offensive coordinator. Just doesn't know what they have in the player that's right in front of them in their grasp. And then secondly, Rivera and company have met with Tommy Tremble multiple times, virtually, like multiple. Like they seem really attached to this guy, and I feel like honestly they may even take him in the third. They may not even risk him sliding to the fourth. George Kittle made it all the way to the fifth, but Tommy Tremble, honestly, coming out of college, looks a little bit better. At least looks like he has a slightly higher floor at the very least. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make it to the fifth round at all. I think you may have to scoop him in the third. But I can also see him sliding to the fourth because there are people out there that like Trey McKitty from Georgia more. Brevin Jordan. Of course, there's Kyle Pitts. Of course, there's Pat Freiermuth, who may go in the late first, early second. So there's a chance that Tommy Tremble may make it later. And after we took Sammis Reyes, we may not even prioritize the Tommy Tremble and may wait till the fourth round and take him instead of taking him too early. They may be like, well, we have Sammis Reyes as a developmental guy. We already have Logan Thomas, who's a guaranteed #1 stud, dual threat guy. So we may not force the issue. If he's there in the fourth round, then we'll take him. So that's what I see. Again, literally George Kittle, dual threat type of guy. Untapped athleticism and potential, good hands already, good inline blocking, loves to punish linebackers and DBs when he gets to the second level. I mean, he just loves to punish them. You can tell he relishes in the opportunity to pancake guys smaller than him. So I love that mentality. I love that aggression. I love that potential. Take my boy Tommy Tremble, bro, please. Then in the fifth round, I have us taking wide receiver Anthony Schwartz from Auburn. And this is another guy that they've met with virtually multiple times. And as you can see, my ceiling comp for him is slightly faster Mecole Hardman, but very slightly less shifty. But I mean, he's that type of dynamic type of player. He can help us in the return game immediately. And everybody knows we've needed it. I mean, our punt coverage is really good just off of the fact that we have one of the best punters in the NFL. But we just haven't had a true returner since Jamison Crowder, while healthy, for 1 year in spurts, and then going even further back, maybe like Deshaun Jackson, further back than that, Brandon Banks. We haven't just had that deadly Devin Hester-like returner, or simply Mecole Hardman like the Chiefs have. I feel like Anthony Schwartz can do that, and I also see him as a pretty raw slot guy that could end up turning into a really good player. I mean, I think he could literally be a Chris Olave type of guy who ended up going back for another year for Ohio State. I feel like he could be that. He's just more raw than a Chris Olave, easily more raw. And there's no guarantee that Adam Humphries is going to be healthy enough to be that true slot guy that we want. There's no guarantee. Last year, he was very injury riddled, and I don't want to depend on him to be that true slot. Of course, Curtis Samuel can also play in the slot. He can play X, Y, and Z. But because of that versatility, we're more than likely going to want to use him out of the backfield, literally as a running back on sweeps, reverses, and things like that, screens. But they're also going to want to just play him outside. Terry outside and Curtis Samuel outside at the same time on a lot of plays. So we need a true slot guy so Curtis Samuel can go around and be everywhere on the field. I feel like Anthony Schwartz has the potential to be that guy, and at the very least, day one, be the best returner we've had in a while. And just like we have 2 third-round picks, we also have 2 sevenths. Now, after the Ereck Flowers trade, we went from 244 to 258. So now our 246th 7th round pick is our first 7th round pick, and that 258 overall pick is the second to last pick in the entire draft. So that was, first of all, that's a huge steal, how we went and got a starting guard just to move down 14 spots in the 7th round. Not even the first, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, not the fifth, not the sixth, the 7th round to move down 14 spots. I mean, what kind of value is that? And then the fact that they're paying more for him to play for us than we are for him to play for us is ridiculous. Like, that's insane. But moving on, with this first 7th round pick, 246th overall, I was taking running back Chris Evans. And his comp, literally more athletic Dalvin Cook. Literally, like, faster, all of that. His only problem is disciplinary issues, so he's one of those risky guys. Him and Micah Parsons are risky guys, but we took a chance on Sadiq Charles because Ron Rivera feels like this culture culture is grounded enough, top to bottom, and not even just front office and coaches, but like players, Chase Youngs, Terry McLaurin's, Jonathan Allen's, Deron Payne's. I can keep going. Stand up guys, model citizens, face a franchise type of guys, say all of the right things, do all of the right things type of guys. He feels like we have a good enough culture to where we can take risk on guys like this. Darius Geis was not his pick. I feel like if Ron Rivera were the head coach with this front office, they would have done more homework on the situation and wouldn't have taken Darius Geis at all. So I don't fault them for Darius Geis at all, because it wasn't their pick. It wasn't them that decided to draft him. It wasn't them that scouted him and did the background search on his character and stuff like that. So, and then also like Micah Parsons, his off the field issues have been like a fight because he plays too much, and then like one time in high school he incited a riot and things like that. But it's not weed, it's not domestic violence, it's not anything like assault, sexual assault or anything like that. No drugs, alcohol, no DUIs, none of that. I think once he's in the NFL and he's focused, he won't do that. And he didn't have a lot of moments like that in college. It was just younger in his career early on. And then with Chris Evans, you may have to worry about him more than the Micah Parsons, but you definitely don't have to worry about him as much as a Darius Geis. And again, more athletic Dalvin Cook. I feel like Antonio Gibson is going to be our best running back off rip, especially if he's healthy. And I mean, he even played off a turf toe, played pretty well off that turf toe. And then JD McKissick is clearly the third down guy. Peyton Barber's your when in doubt 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 type of guy. But Chris Evans, he makes it to the 7th round. You got to take that chance. Again, more athletic Dalvin Cook. Go look at the tape. Go look at the RAS scores between him and Dalvin Cook. He literally beats him in pretty much every category and every combine test. It's crazy. And then with the final pick, I have us taking my boy Cornell Powell. And I know I have a few of my guys in here, but the guys I have in here are guys that I picked because they've met with them. There's interest in them. They've met with Tommy Tremble multiple times. They met with Ifeatu Melifonwu. That's my guy. There's reports that they're highly interested in a Micah Parsons, and Ron Rivera wants his Luke Kuechly. And then my boy Cornell Powell. I mean, literally the reason I first started looking into his film and really looking at what he did for Clemson is because they met with them virtually. And I was like, okay, that wide receiver Cornell Powell, you know, he's estimated to go way late in the draft, maybe even as an undrafted free agent. I need to check out who he is and like why they interviewed him and why they're interested in him. And then from there, I figured out that he's just this crazy talented guy. Again, my ceiling comp for him is Pierre Garçon. I've been saying in my previous mock drafts, literally Pierre Garçon can do everything. He's not necessarily elite at anything, but he's good to great at everything. Route running, release, and granted he's still pretty raw. He has room to grow in those areas, but I mean, he's fairly athletic, good hands, and most importantly, one of the things I like the most about him, and one of the things they liked the most about Terry McLaurin before we took him, was the fact that he's a great blocker, one of the best blocking wide receivers in this class, if not the best, and that helps your run game. That's basically like a dual threat wide receiver, just like a dual threat tight end. That's very helpful. That's also why they're pretty high on Kelvin Harmon. I feel like Cornell Powell has a higher ceiling than Kelvin Harmon, but Kelvin Harmon probably has the best hands on the team, and I really want him to end up working out. But I would still take Cornell Powell if he's there with our final pick in the draft. Like, I mean, the talent is crazy. Literally the last 6 games of the season for Clemson, he looked like a top 5 receiver in college, like period. Averaging 120 yards per game. I mean, he was balling. He was unstoppable. And I don't know why they didn't use him before. Like, Trevor Lawrence just literally never really chose to target him. Then once DJ stepped in, when Trevor Lawrence had to miss that one game, they started throwing to him. He balled. And then once Trevor Lawrence came back, he was like, wait a minute, this Cornell Powell guy is actually pretty good. I'm pretty sure the offensive coordinator said the same thing. And then they targeted him a lot for the rest of the season. I mean, even like manufactured touches, like screens and things like that. Like, they finally realized they had a true playmaker in their hand. And I feel like he may make it to the 7th round because, again, his sample size is very small, but what he did in that small sample size is great. Again, Pierre Garçon. Now let's move to the undrafted free agents. I have us taking offensive tackle Deontay Smith. He's a 6'5" developmental tackle. I don't even think on his best day, after he touches a Space Jam ball, that he would end up being Trent Williams, but he's a pretty nice developmental tackle to take a look at. They're also interested in him. Along with all of these undrafted free agents I give to us, all of these guys they're interested in. They've met with them at least once virtually. I also have us taking edge Wyatt Herbert. He's more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, but we're starting to run more 5 D-line sets. Like, most of the time we're not in base defense, we're usually in nickel, But actually a few times last year, especially going towards the end of the year and against the Buccaneers in the playoffs, we ran 5 defensive linemen. And Wyatt Hubert could be a developmental edge rusher to bring in right there, a situational pass rusher that you only bring in on like 3rd and longs and things like that. I mean, now that we have a shutdown corner in William Jackson, and with the guys I have us taking in this mock draft, our secondary is straight lockup. So now we would actually be able to run 5 defensive linemen and be able to allow our linebackers and DBs to shut down everything else in the passing game. Then I also have us taking safety cornerback Mark Webb, and looking around, I've seen a lot of comparisons to Jair Alexander as far as like build, play style, and everything else. He's just more raw coming out of college, but just basically Jair Alexander, but raw. That's the type of potential that he has. He was supposed to be so great for my Bulldogs. It just never ended up working out. It just simply never worked out. He never reached that type of potential, but never know. As an undrafted free agent, bring him in. He could be that type of guy. Again, he's versatile enough to where we could develop him as a safety or a corner. I mean, I like him at either spot as a developmental guy. Then I also have us taking tight end Tony Polhan, and he's a good blocker with hands. Basically Logan Thomas, not very athletic, not a good route runner, but he's a good blocker with good hands. And that's literally what Logan Thomas basically is, but just better at both of those. Well, then again, Logan Thomas in the beginning of the season did not have good hands. He eventually developed them by the end of the season and became a dependable target. Tony Polhan is basically just a good size Thaddeus Moss, because Thaddeus Moss was a little undersized. That's why we kind of projected him to be like a Chris Cooley role, where he could be like a fullback sometimes and a tight end, you know, whichever one is more necessary, which one we want for that particular snap. Tony Polhan is like an actual just straight tight end, not really a guy that you can flex at fullback in like a Chris Cooley role. He's not that, but he's basically the same thing. Good blocker with good hands, and that's about it to his game right now. No like athleticism where you can project him to be way better than that. But I feel like, I mean, with Jeremy Sprinkle gone, he could basically take Jeremy Sprinkle's spot as being a guy that you can have him in as an extra blocker. But unlike Jeremy Sprinkle, he can actually catch. I feel like that's a pretty solid option to bring in. He's not a real developmental guy, again, because he doesn't have like strong athletic traits, but he's a guy you bring in and you know what you're getting day one, and at the very least he can block and catch an open pass. And then I also have us taking wide receiver Ben Swaranick, and he's just basically big and tall. Ron Rivera and company have just been emphasizing how much they need a big guy. And there's a reason there were rumors we may potentially trade for N'Keal Harry, and I feel like they don't want to just depend on Cam Sims to work out. I like Cam Sims, and you hope that he does well, but you don't depend on him to do well. And that's why I have us taking a Ben Swaranick as just that big, tall guy. And Ben Swaranick is only an inch taller than Kelvin Harmon, but he just seems bigger. And Kelvin Harmon plays bigger than his size at 6'2", but Ben Swaranick just seems like a certified red zone threat type of guy when in doubt. But we'll see. That, I mean, these are undrafted free agents, so don't expect a lot out of them. But I chose this select few because of their potential and what they can contribute either day one or as a developmental player. But that's the end of this mock draft. Thank you for the view. Please like this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Please get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about this draft. Do you like it? Do you love it? Did you hate it? What picks do you love? What picks do you hate? Who would you insert in exchange? I mean, you can literally throw in your mock draft for us in the comment section. Give us your predictions. Do you see us trading up? Do you see us trading back? I will be in the comment section and looking at everybody's mock drafts or opinions on this mock draft. Again, this is not exactly what I would want to do. This is what I feel like is actually fairly realistic. Again, I was thinking about taking the JOK, but much as I like him, if Micah Parsons falls to 19, which is quite possible, or even if Micah Parsons falls to like the range of like 14 or something, I can see Ron Rivera trading up for him, as John Conn has reported. And with this draft, you're getting Luke Kuechly, faster Jimmy Smith, Ryan Tannehill to develop, John Johnson, George Kittle, slightly faster but slightly less agile Mecole Hardman, more athletic Dalvin Cook with off the field issues, and Pierre Garçon, along with some undrafted free agents to develop. I mean, that's a crazy haul. Right there, we have arguably the best defense in the NFL. I think we do, with Micah Parsons on it just alone. I mean, even after the draft, you may want to sign like a Trey Boston as a guaranteed day one center fielder at free safety while you develop Richie Grant. There's still options in free agency after the draft. I mean, we may even bring in an offensive tackle after the draft. like an Andre Villanueva or something like that. Now, of course, I'm team trade up for Lance or Fields, and I feel like if we don't do that, it's not much I can really get excited about. We can still have a good draft, but I'm not going to be excited about a draft that doesn't include Lance or Fields, and Micah Parsons is the best consolation prize for me. Easily. It's not even close. It's literally Trey Lance, Justin Fields, 1A, 1B, Micah Parsons, 1C, and then everybody else is just 2 and below. There's a gap. So this mock draft is very realistic, and I'm also a fan of it. Again, we don't get our franchise guy, but who knows? Maybe Davis Mills surprises people. He doesn't have a big arm, so his ceiling is fairly limited in that way, but he was a 5-star for a reason, fairly raw. You can develop him. And nobody I have that's taken is injury prone, so I'm happy about that as well. No injury concerns out of this class, and a lot of them can immediately contribute. We just have to worry about Chris Evans off the field issues, and again, I don't feel like Micah Parsons is that big of a worry as far as off the field issues go, just with this type of off the field issues he's had. Again, if Micah Parsons makes it to 19, he's guaranteed to be the pick. And John Comm doesn't report things for no reason. He asks around and makes sure he gets like 8 confirmations before he reports it. There is a high chance that we trade up for Micah Parsons. And originally in my mock draft, I had us taking Elijah Vera-Tucker because there were also reports that we were very interested in him. But after we traded for Ereck Flowers, that's pretty much done. We don't have to force offensive line in this draft. When in doubt, you can address offensive line in the 2022 draft. And again, there's still free agents out there. I mean, even Larry Warford is out there. I'm still confused as to why Larry Warford is a free agent. He was a back-to-back 3 times in a row Pro Bowler, and all he did was opt out last year. And if he wants to play, I don't understand why he's not automatically on the team. He wasn't even asking for a lot of money. But either way, that's a whole nother rant. That's a whole nother tangent. But either way, I love this draft class. Again, nothing's going to get me as excited as Trey Lance or Justin Fields, which I actually, again, feel like is quite likely to happen. But this is a great second place for me after Trey Lance and Justin Fields. But again, get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this. Please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get more draft coverage. I got y'all covered draft, free agency, after the draft. Y'all already know, man. Before the draft, I'm live streaming at 2 p.m. for like an hour or two so we can, do some pre-mock drafts like together where I ask y'all who we think we'll take and things like that. We can do mock drafts for the entire NFL, the first round, or we can do like 7 round ones like this one for us or things like that. We're going to discuss everything. I'm going to go through reports and rumors and things like that. And then I'm live streaming rounds 1 through 5. So round 1 on Thursday, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and rounds 4 and 5 on Saturday. Not round 6 and 7. And then after the draft, you already know I got to hit y'all with the breakdowns of each pick, pros and cons. And then leading up to training camp, I'm gonna do film sessions on each pick, even some undrafted free agents if they're a notable enough undrafted free agent with like a lot of potential or somebody that I really wanted. And of course, I got to give like my overall grade for the draft, my overall review of the entire draft and things like that. So stay tuned for all draft content here, including film sessions. And of course, the live streams are going to keep going after this draft weekend. I'm going right back to live streaming every Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. and every Sunday for a couple of hours. And this Sunday coming up after the draft, of course, is going to be a draft dominant live stream where we're going to talk everything, the draft review and everything, how excited we are, how disappointed we are, all of that type of stuff. And I'm going to ask y'all for y'all opinions in that Sunday live stream. So stay tuned for all of that. And as always, man, I really appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to everybody that pulls up to every live stream, every video, leaves a like, shares it out to everybody they know. Big shouts out to everybody that donates to the channel, big time. And of course, huge shout out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names she's scrolling on the screen right now, man. Really appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.